Hey everybody, it's Dana with CoachDanaInspires.com, and we are excited that you are here today. We've got a great interview going on today. This is going to be interesting to, I think, just about everybody who watches it. Our guest today is Dr. Ed Jackson, and he is the owner and the inspiration behind meaning-centered leadership. And we're going to be talking about why meaning, why does that matter in our business? And I think it kind of will overflow into other parts of our lives. And we're super, super excited to have Dr. Ed Jackson here with us today. So Ed, how are you? What's going on?
Dana, I'm doing great. Thank you very much. It's a blessing, here with Thanksgiving, knowing that we're going to have a big family gathering.
Yay.
Everybody's healthy, employed, and taking care of themselves, and really satisfied that we're going to have that opportunity coming up here in a few days.
All right. Yeah, I love that. I love this time of year because it really highlights how good, even when things are kind of crummy,
Yeah.
how good things truly are. So that's wonderful. It's great to know. So you're out here, you're listening to your clients, you have your business partners, your colleagues, just the folks that you talk to day in business. How are they feeling about the future now? What are they thinking? Are they being optimistic? Yeah, I mean, we're running into almost a year of this delightful COVID business. What are you hearing from them?
Sure, Dana. I think the number one thing I'm hearing is the stress that people are experiencing with regards to engaging and retaining their employees. And that seems to be number one. How do we engage and retain a workforce that as we look at the numbers, what has been termed the Great Resignation, we see large numbers of people looking elsewhere. They're looking for something else in their lives that they're not finding in their work. So really focusing on engagement and retention strategies for employees is a big topic. And one that's getting a lot of press. You can see a concerted message about the millennial generation really needing to find purpose and meaning in their work. And if they're not finding it, they're going to be looking elsewhere. So it's interesting in that it's pushing companies to really look at how do we really engage our employees, and so that they feel that they're as important as the customer is.
Yeah. I like that because sometimes I think businesses have a tendency to say, like you just said, customer focus, and they seem to forget to, what is that, communicate to their employees that without you, and I've said this before, so what kind of work do you do? Oh, I'm just an admin, or I'm just back in the day when there were secretaries, I'm just a secretary, or I just do maintenance. You're not just anything. Without those people, the business couldn't run.
Right.
And I think,
yeah, Dana, that reminds me of the story of John F. Kennedy when he visited NASA and spoke with the custodian, and he asked him what he did there at NASA, and he said, I send people to the moon. And when the vision and the mission is big enough and strong enough, everybody in the organization should experience it, just the way that custodian did at NASA.
Yeah, I love that. And that's so true, exactly true. And it's the company's responsibility, I guess is the word, to let the people who work there know that they're important. Wow, this is so great. I'm excited about this interview. So, what can we do? What can we do? A lot of our viewers are going to be entrepreneurs, small business owners, but these are people that work for other companies. These are CEOs. We've got lots of people on here. What can we do right now if we own a business and we have people working for us? What can we do right now to really make a difference in our businesses?
I think it really comes down to being very strategic. If engagement and retention is your focus, then you really need to apply a strategy, a research-proven strategy like meaning-centered leadership that leads to increased engagement and more retention, longer serving employees in your organization. So really focusing on that which we know what employees are looking for, and they're looking for relatedness, autonomy, and competence. And those three elements are part of what we talk about in meaning-centered leadership as the 3 E's: engagement, empowerment, and expertise. Just those skills and strategies that not only improve the well-being of the employee, but also the organizational, the success of the organization overall. So, but it does require that you have a focused approach and that you're training for that, and you're making sure that that's happening throughout the organization.
Yeah, it has to be very deliberate
Yes.
to be thinking that way, right? So, so it's essential for businesses to adopt this meaning-centered approach. So I think you named a couple things, but you want to put a little more meat into that sandwich for us? Why is
Sure,
that so
sure.
important?
So meaning really starts with engagement.
Okay.
And it's that first E, that engagement, where you build relationships, trusting relationships. In our research, we identified the number one thing that employees want from their leadership is the opportunity to build trusting relationships. And so it's important that you have that skill set as a leader, that you're thinking about that organizationally. How are we bringing people together so that they can build trusting relationships? That's the first marker of meaning. It's made in engagement, and it's made in building those trusting relationships. And the research tells us that people who find meaning at work, they're more productive, they're happier, they're healthier, they're 3 times more likely to stay in their organization. And engaged employees are 200 times more productive than disengaged employees. It really is a business imperative when you look at the estimates that a disengaged employee can cost the company $20,000 a year, and that due to involuntary or voluntary turnover, companies lose, just across the United States alone, $1 trillion. So there are huge financial impetus to do this, not to mention the humanitarian need to support employees. As the statement on the purpose of a corporation set forward recently, just before the pandemic in 2019, they said Americans deserve an economy that allows each person, and they talked about finding meaning and dignity in their work. And that's a big change because corporations, as you know, set forth years ago, the responsibility of a corporation is to pay the shareholders. That's it, return a profit. And so this is really a big pivotal change I'm seeing in industry. I think it came just the right time, because after spending 18 months at home, many people are questioning, do I really want to go back to the office? Do I want to go back to work? And so I think embracing that statement and helping people find meaning and dignity in their work is essential.
Yeah. And still, companies still need to make it profitable.
Sure.
And these are ways that our businesses can be so much more profitable by using these methods. So this is incredible stuff, really. So what's the mind shift that an individual or an organization have to really make to develop a meaning-centered organization? How do the leaders get to that?
Right. And that's a really great question, because it's really the first thing you have to do. If you look at this statement and you look at the elements of meaning-centered leadership, each of them requires some very intentional approaches. And it starts with focusing more on your employees. Just getting to know them, developing relationships with them, communicating care and concern to them, right? There's so many ways to communicate care and concern, from a simple a thank you letter that lets them know that you care about them, a birthday card, whatever the case may be. Just connecting with your employees on that different level, bringing people together to form trusting relationships has to be intentional. You have to have icebreakers, and you have to bring your diverse workforce together and allow them time to work in collaboration to build those relationships. They're all very important. And I think one thing that really surprised me in our research was what we learned about open communication and active listening, because when we talk to the exemplary leaders in our research, how do you demonstrate character? They talked about, I got to walk the walk and talk the talk. Interestingly, the employees with overwhelmingly, I think it was 86%, identified that they judge the character of their leader by how well they listen to others. So if you're walking the walk and talking the talk, that's great, but you may not be inserting your own personal character in. You're not allowing people to see that, because what people are really looking for, they want to know, are you listening? Are you being attentive, reflective, and elaborative in your conversations? Are you including people? And if you're doing that, you're hitting that first E, engagement. You're moving people in that direction.
I think that's really important, because I know that when you're in a workplace, there's so many different personalities and so many different, we can go through, what is that, Myers-Briggs, DISC, blah blah, all these
Sure.
different assessments to find out who people are. But really, the bottom line is, I think what I'm hearing is really having a caring attitude towards the people who are working for your company.
Right, and then it's also it's that, and understanding really what people need, and just identifying what research tells us. They need engagement, they need relatedness, they need autonomy. So our second E, empowerment, is all about empowering the employee. And one of the ways that we see successful companies do that is they have a vision that compels people. They have a vision that supports people's need. And we learned this from the work of Viktor Frankl and in positive psychology, right? That people need to feel they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. They're answering a need. This goes all the way back to Socrates, and Aristotle identified that it's in their workings that people find optimal well-being. So to approach that, it's really bringing the vision to life, making it collaborative, having your employees write goals connected to the vision. When you look at companies that are super successful, and their visions can be really simple, like Disney, to make people happy. How hard is that? It's pretty clear what they stand for, what your role if you join the company is. Your job is to come here and make people happy. It's simple. And that can be a really compelling force in itself if that vision is alive and people are working on it. People are being recognized, and they're being led by enthusiastic leaders. Then empowerment can really take place, and people can move forward with that certainty that they can work autonomously because they understand where they're going.
Right. I really like that. And it seems like, we're talking about it, and I think, well, this is so basic, so simple. Why don't more people do it? I mean, I'm sorry. Am I missing something here, Ed?
Well, that's kind of interesting you say that, because Tom Peters wrote a comment on our book that the message is clear and the message is important. And he says, I wish I had written this book. And he wrote probably the best-selling business book of all time, In Search of Excellence, over 40 years ago. And on a recent podcast, he said, just implement the damn thing. It's not hard. It's about being nice to people. It's about the golden rule. It's about having principles and allowing those principles to help guide your organization. And that's what our third E, expertise, is about. It's about creating a wise organization. And wisdom is simply experience matched with principles. And if those two are guideposts for your organization, those principles give people something to hang on to, something to believe in when times get difficult, and you're going to have it. And wise organizations just outperform other organizations. It's pretty clear, and it's not a magic sauce. You don't have to meditate 1,000 hours to be wise. You simply need to have a value set that guides your organization, and you have to have some experience of what you're doing, and you have to be willing to share that. You have to be willing to mentor others. You have to be willing to demonstrate to the organization through optimism, looking at the future challenges and helping people see those not as roadblocks, but as opportunities for their own personal growth. And that optimism really helps people connect, and they have to sacrifice, right? We're asking people to go to work, sacrifice time with your family, sacrifice time that you could be out walking your dog or hitting your golf ball, whatever you'd like to be. And you're going to only do that if there's a compelling reason. So having a real optimistic outlook on the future is essential.
Yeah.
And finally, one of the things that I thought was really surprising is the role of humility. Because in the book, Good to Great, those authors identified that the difference between a good organization and a great organization was that the great organizations had a humble CEO or leader at the top who communicated that through the organization. And they did that by listening to others, by inviting opinions, admitting their mistakes, and really importantly, being the lead learner in the organization, letting people know that, hey, everybody in the organization needs to have a growth mindset because we're always learning and growing.
Yeah.
And so you're right, Dana, it is very common knowledge. And we wrote the book because we wanted people to have a framework to visualize their own leadership, and then a way to measure that. We also have you mentioned measurement tools. There's another one. It's our own meaning-centered leadership survey, but it's to help people gauge how much people are engaging with them in terms of their leadership. Are they creating meaning? Are they doing things that people find purposeful? And is that leading the organization to having employees that experience optimal well-being? Because we know that when people find meaning and purpose in life, their well-being is optimized. And the opposite of that, when they don't have that in their lives, they're discouraged, they're stressed, they're sick. And we see that all over our society. Suicide numbers were off the chart. I think there was 100,000 suicides in the last year, 100,000. We don't have a vaccine that we can give for that. We have to do better with each other, the way we work together, the way we live together. So we don't need that vaccine. Because people shouldn't be in one of the most prosperous countries that the world has ever known. People shouldn't be in deep despair.
Right. You were talking about early, just a minute ago, about when the CEO and they engage, and that gives people this feeling of belonging and well-being and connection. And I'm just going to toss out a quick little story. Many years ago, I worked for Charles Schwab, and we were in Denver, and headquarters is San Francisco. And Chuck is what we called him. Chuck would come out and visit, I don't know, at least once a year, usually twice, sometimes 3 times. And he remembered everyone's name. I met him one time, and then we went to this town hall, and I said, I want to work for that guy. Because I was, kind of transitioning from one thing to the other, and really wasn't planning on staying in the financial industry. It's okay, but that really wasn't my gig. But I thought, I like that guy. And just the way he communicated with us. I mean, it was a room full of 1,000, 2,000 people, something, ridiculously gigantic, for making an impact on individuals. And he knew how to do that. And it wasn't pretend. He talked to us like he was talking to one person about his vision, about what he wanted for us and wanted for his, our clients. And And every day I went to work, and I went to work for Chuck. You know, I did have this boss, and I did have that manager, and I did have that director, blah, blah, blah. But I went to work for Chuck. And it's because of how he communicated his desire for us. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's a great example, Dana. You know, that they say that the sweetest sound is your own name, right? When somebody
Yeah.
can use your name. And I can think of a ton of examples of leaders that certainly I've experienced or I've talked with other people with about their own work, people who are looking for work, and they talk about it really is, as the Gallup research says, it's the manager, right? It's that person that's working with you that doesn't take the time to get to know you, doesn't care about you, that begins to direct your activities or something when you walk in the door. There's no empowerment, so there's no autonomy, and there's no engagement, so there's no relatedness. It sounds like he was a exceptional CEO who not only had wisdom and optimism and humility in spades, but he really helped build the expertise of the organization, obviously.
Yeah, he was magic. I'm going to just say that. So, let's get off of Chuck for a second here. What skills and strategies are really needed to create this meaning-centered approach? What do we, as business owners, as leaders, managers, directors, what skills are we going to need to make this really work?
I think the first skill, and you just kind of highlighted it a little bit. We talked about mind shift, but there has to be a little bit of a heart shift as well. You have to realize that we have to do things differently. You have to accept that looking at those numbers across the country of people who are leaving work, people who are committing suicide, those are real lives. Those are human lives. Yeah. And I think you have to own your responsibility at creating a company that's not only profitable, but also returns meaning and dignity to the workforce, as the CEO roundtable put forth in their purpose of a corporation. But those skills require you to focus on things that Tom Peters spelled out, things that Viktor Frankl mentioned, things that Aristotle described that we needed in our work, right? And it really does come down to focusing on building trust, communicating care and concern, and certainly open communication and active listening. Those are the skills behind engagement that are going to move people forward. Can you bring a group together and allow them to have collaborative conversations? And certainly your voice is going to be in the room, but are you humble enough to step back and allow some other voices be heard in the room? Because that is deeply empowering when you have the opportunity to speak your piece. And so, you know, as we spell out in empowerment, it's about collaborative visioning, building that vision, having your employees set goals directly related to that vision so that they can feel like they're on that bus, they're moving forward, and recognizing people in real ways. Most companies have like an employee of the month, you get a golden goose, maybe you get the preferred parking space for 30 days. But there's nothing that beats management by walking around and recognizing people while they're doing it, and then giving them a shout out across the organization, dropping a wow card off at their desk and letting them, you know, I'm really glad you're on my team or in this company. Those are essential things, and leading with that enthusiasm. And so how does a leader do that? You really have to have a sense that you're a servant leader, you serve your community. You're not there because you're a big shot or a hot shot, although you might be, but you're there. And it sounds like your description of Chuck was that he very much understood that he served his employees, he served his customers. And it's important that you have that servant aspect, that you have an attitude of gratitude and focusing on the things that you get to do, not the things you have to do. That will really keep you energetic and enthusiastic so you can lead clearly by example, by bringing the best of yourself to work each and every day. And I think I mentioned, you know, the elements of expertise that leaders need to bring. They need to have that wise approach. They need to know that investing in their teams through mentorship and learning. One of the exemplary leaders I interviewed mentioned that on his leadership team, everybody had to have 2 mentors. It wasn't enough that they had one. And so that was a technology company out on the West Coast. But those are the real things you have to do so you can lead with optimism and you can demonstrate humility. We know that leaders from time to time have to step out and make hard decisions. And sometimes people might look at them and think, well, that seems a little narcissistic. They're taking that on. But it's amazing how much humility cuts back at that.
Yeah.
How much humility can step in and then make you appear much more human to the people that you're leading. It balances those roles out, that need to be in command with the fact that, hey, I'm human, and being able to admit mistakes and admit that hey, I might be where I'm at, but I'm still sharpening the saw each and every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Yes. And I think humility just goes a long, long way. It just goes a long way. You have a book. Is that correct there, Ed?
Yes, ma'am. Meaning-Centered Leadership.
Can you show us a copy of that
Skills
book?
and Strategies for Increased Employee Well-Being and Organizational Success. I co-authored that with one of my research partners, Dr. Barbara Bartels, and she's out on the West Coast and speaks on behalf of meaning-centered leadership throughout the West Coast.
And we can get that on Amazon or through your
Amazon,
website?
it's in Barnes and Nobles.
All right.
And, from our bookseller, Roman in Littlefield. In fact, if you follow me on social media, you'll see a 35% discount. We got a Black Friday special, and I'm sure we'll run another one for the holidays. So look for that Black Friday special. You can find that at any of our social media sites.
All right. Wow. Super
And
duper.
if you don't find it, you can always message me and I'll make sure you get it.
And speaking of messaging, we are going to give our folks some information on how to find you. Absolutely. Because we need to be able to get a hold of, oh dear, where'd I go? There you go. Whew, thought I lost that one. Okay, folks, you need to find this book. Get your discount, 35% off. Hello.
Yeah.
That's close to free. Let me do the math. Okay. Anyway, so you can get a hold of Dr. Ed Jackson, and his website is meaning-centeredleadership.com. And info@meaning-centered-leadership is how you get a hold of Ed here. And there's even a phone number that if you need to call, he's got an assistant. I will tell you, she will just rock your socks. If you can't talk to Ed, his assistant, Gail, is the next best thing. She is fabulous. She will help you out. She'll answer your questions. So great information. Look up his book, look up his information. If you want to get a hold of Dr. Jackson to find out how he can come and help your business out, this is how you do it. This is great stuff. Wow. So any other ways that we can get a hold of you? This is it. Your website, phone number, email, anything else we need to know about you, Ed?
On the website, our social media is linked there. I'm also an active blogger, so I really keep on top of the research on meaning, on issues related to work, on engaging and retaining your employees. So feel free to jump on there and take a look at some of those blogs and connect with us so you can have up-to-date information, up-to-date research on all things leadership.
Yeah, and if you own a business, you run a business, you are part of a business, this is important information, so you really want to jump on here. This is great. So Ed, our time is coming to an end. Oh my goodness, such great information, packed full of, really, this is information that we can all use and really take heart to change our business and the outlook of our employees. So thank you so much, Ed. And if anybody out there wants to get a hold of me, that's my information, Dana at CoachDanaInspires.com. I work with women entrepreneurs to help them find their value, find their perfect client, and then we go out there and change the world one person at a time. So I really appreciate you coming here, Ed. Thanks, listeners. And wow, this has been great information. So until next time, thank you, Ed. Thank you, everybody.